Smoke still floated over the broken buildings. The sky was black from fire and ash. Buildings had collapsed and machines were left frozen in strange positions. A battle had ended here, but no one had really won. Captain Grant moved slowly through the ruins, holding his pulse rifle tightly. His helmet scanner showed no signs of life, yet he kept walking, careful with every step. He wasn't here to fight. He was here to find survivors. This alien city once had thousands of people, mostly civilians. When the rebels attacked, they didn't care who lived or died. Now everything was quiet, like death was watching. Grant stepped over a fallen statue. His boots crunched on glass. His eyes kept scanning the shadows. Then he saw something strange, a small shimmer behind a half-fallen pillar. He aimed his rifle, heart racing. Then he heard a tiny cough. Not a soldier, not a rebel. He lowered his weapon and stepped closer. There, curled up behind the pillar, was a child. She was small, maybe 7 years old in human age, but clearly alien. Her skin had a soft lavender tone, and her big violet eyes glowed faintly even in the darkness. She looked like she hadn't eaten for days. Dirt covered her knees. Her thin arms shook as she stared at him. Grant lowered his helmet visor. He didn't. Want to scare her? Hey, he said gently. I'm not going to hurt you. The girl didn't answer. She didn't run either. Instead, she stood slowly, walked up to him, and tugged at his shirt with one small hand. Her fingers were ice cold. Are you a father? She asked quietly, voice barely more than a whisper. Grant blinked. The question hit him hard. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. He wasn't ready for that kind of question. He didn't even know who she was. Why do you ask? He said, kneeling to her level. The girl looked down, then at her hands. I was told, ... someone would come, they said. If someone finds you and they feel warm, stay with them. I felt warm when you came close. Grant didn't know what to say. This wasn't part of any mission report. She wasn't just a random survivor. She had been waiting. Suddenly a blast echoed in the distance. Out. The girl flinched and grabbed his arm tightly. We need to move, Grant said quickly. He picked her up, surprised at how light she was. She didn't resist. She just held on, head resting on his shoulder like she belonged there. Grant ran through the narrow path between destroyed buildings until he found a half-broken tunnel entrance. Inside, the air was cold but quiet. He sat the girl down gently and wrapped her in his emergency jacket. She sat with her knees pulled up, eyes never leaving his face. What's your name? He asked. I don't have one, she said. Grant stared at her. What do people call you? Number? I was number 6. Number 6. Grant frowned. You're not a machine. She shook her head. That's what they called me at the facility. What facility? Grant asked. She looked away. The place where they made me. Sent a chill through him. This wasn't just a scared child hiding from war. There was something deeper, something darker. She wasn't supposed to be out here. She'd been created and then forgotten. Grant looked closer and noticed something. Glowing faintly on the side of her neck, a mark shaped like a spiral with strange lines through it. He reached out. What's that on your neck? The girl touched it with her fingers. It burns sometimes, I think. ... It controls me. Grant's mind raced. A control device. A tracker. A failed experiment? What had this child gone through? Before he could ask more, the girl suddenly looked up, alarmed. They're coming, she said. Who? Grant stood fast, gun ready. My people, she said. Not to save me, to take me back. Grant turned off his helmet light. He grabbed the girl and backed against the tunnel wall. Footsteps echoed above. Not human. Fast, heavy, metallic. She pressed her face into his chest, whispering, They'll take me and make me forget again. He held her tight. Not if I can stop them, he whispered back. They waited in silence, breathing slow as shadows passed overhead. The child, who had no name and no home, had chosen him. And in that moment, Grant knew this mission had changed This wasn't just rescue. It was the beginning of something far more dangerous. And personal. The tunnel walls dripped with old moisture, and the lights from above flickered like dying stars. Grant didn't sleep, sat with his rifle resting across his knees, while the little girl curled under his jacket like a scared animal. Sound made him tense. She had said they were coming, not to help her, but to take her back. Back to what? She breathed quietly now, like she had finally found a small corner of safety. But Grant's mind was far from calm. He kept staring at the glowing mark on her neck. It looked alive, like it moved with her pulse. No known alien species had symbols like that. This wasn't just culture. This was technology, and it was fused into her skin. When morning light seeped through the cracks above, she opened her eyes. "Did they come?" she asked softly. Grant shook his head. "We're safe for now." She sat up slowly, rubbing her hands together. Her fingers were thin, skin pale with soft purple undertones. She looked like a ghost from a forgotten world. "Tell me more about that, Mark," Grant said, keeping his voice low and steady. She touched it like she always did, gently, carefully, like it might hurt her if she pressed too hard. "It was put there before I could talk. They said it would keep me quiet, keep me safe, keep me under control." Grant frowned. "Who said that?" She hesitated, then whispered, "The white coats, the ones behind the glass." So she had been kept in a lab, not raised, not loved, tested. "Do you know where this place was?" She shook her head. "Underground, no windows. They only brought us outside once, to see if we could survive without them." Grant's stomach turned. "Were there others like you?" "There were 7. I was the smallest." Her voice dropped. The others stopped moving. "I don't know why." Now Grant understood why she didn't have a name. She had never been treated like a person. Just a number. A project. A thing. He pulled out his datapad, trying to access the galactic records. But the signal was jammed again. Something in this area was blocking communication, either rebel tech, or whatever group was still hunting her. Suddenly, the girl clutched her chest. "Hey," Grant said quickly, moving closer. "What's wrong?" "It's burning," she said through clenched teeth. "The mark. It's hot again." He checked her neck. The symbol was glowing brighter than before. "Does it do this often?" "It's only when they're close," she said, eyes wide with fear. "They're searching." Grant picked her up and moved deeper into the tunnel system. He couldn't stay in one place anymore. He needed shelter and answers. They found a hidden service hatch that led to an old maintenance room. It was tight, dark, but safe. While she rested again, Grant examined the mark under his helmet's scanner. It wasn't just a symbol. It was a biotech signature, coded with layered encryption. The scan couldn't break through. Whatever it was, it had been made by a highly advanced species, and it was still connected to something or someone out there. Grant sat back, his heart heavy. She wasn't just a survivor. She was being tracked. He turned toward her. She was awake again, eyes locked on him. "You're not going to leave me, right?" she asked. "No," Grant said, without hesitation. She reached for his hand. "You feel warm again? That means it's still safe?" Grant looked at her, the child who had never known kindness, who had escaped something terrible, who had chosen him not because he was strong, but because he was human. "I need to ask you something," he said. "My people. ... Would you come with me?" She nodded slowly. "Will they give me a name? We'll make sure of it." She smiled, small and uncertain, but real. Then suddenly, a noise. A mechanical clicking sound echoed from above. Grant turned off the emergency light and pulled her close. They both listened. 1 step, 2, then more. Not boots. But claws, drones, hunters with scanners and heat vision. The same kind he had seen on covert missions used by black market scientists and hidden research groups. These machines didn't take prisoners, they took property. The girl's hand trembled in his. "They're here," she whispered. Grant tightened his grip. He wasn't going to let them take her. Not now, not ever. They waited in silence as the sound moved past, then faded. Grant leaned closer and said, "We move at night. No more hiding. She nodded. Okay. ... Dad. The word froze him. She had said it like it was natural, like it was right. He looked down. She was already resting her head against him, eyes closed again. Grant stared into the shadows, one hand on his rifle, and the other holding the girl who had just called him father. The world outside was broken, dangerous, full of secrets, but this child had given him something no war or mission ever had, a reason to protect, and a name he never knew he needed. The stars above were cold and distant as Grant moved through the rubble under the cover of darkness. He kept his back low, rifle tight, and every step silent. The little girl clung to his back, wrapped in a camo cloak that hid her body heat. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. The fear in her small hands gripping his shoulders said everything. They had seen the drones, and they were not alone anymore. The city ruins were worse than he remembered. Burnt-out towers, cracked streets, strange green mist rising from broken pipelines. The further he moved, the more he realized how abandoned this place really was. Not by accident, but by choice. Someone had made sure no one would return here. He stopped near a rusted fountain and scanned the area. It looked clear. Then the girl whispered in his ear, "They're near." Grant stiffened.
Oh.
Shook her head. Not machines. ... them. Grant turned fast, scanning again. Then he saw it, 3 tall figures moving across the rooftops. Their armor was black and shimmered like liquid. Their helmets had no eyes, only silver masks, silent, precise, and they were not human. He ducked behind a wall and whispered, "Who are they?" She gripped his arm tightly. "My people? Are they soldiers?" She slowly shook her head. "They're cleaners." Grant didn't like that word. "What does that mean?" "They come to erase problems," she said quietly. "Things that..." "Escaped? You mean, like you?" She didn't answer, but the look in her eyes was enough. Grant felt his gut twist. These weren't rescue teams. These were hunters sent to make sure nothing survived from that lab. No witnesses, no subjects, no mistakes. He pulled her close and looked her in the eye. "Do they know who you are?" "They will," she said. "If they see me..." Grant grabbed a canister from his belt and popped the cap. Smoke burst out, cloaking the street. He lifted her in his arms again and ran. The figures on the rooftop didn't shout. They didn't fire. They just followed, silently, relentlessly. He ducked into a collapsed tunnel entrance, hoping to lose them in the underground maze. The walls were slick and smelled of oil and rust. Every sound echoed too loudly. He could hear the girl's breathing in his ear, fast, afraid. Then he heard something else, a soft thud behind them, another one, and then the unmistakable scrape of alien boots on stone they had followed. Grant ran faster, took sharp turns through the tunnels, using his memory and instinct. But no matter how far he ran, the sound remained behind them. Always the same distance, always quiet. Then the girl said, "They won't stop." "Why not?" "Because I'm their failure." Grant stopped. He looked at her. "What do you mean?" She looked away, eyes full of shame. "I wasn't strong enough. I wasn't fast enough. I didn't obey orders like the others, so they marked me for deletion, and you escaped." She nodded. "I ran when the locks failed. I didn't know where to go, so I followed the sky." That meant she had climbed out of the facility with no name, no home, no one, just the stars above as her guide. And still she found him. He knelt beside her. "You're not a failure." Before she could speak, a soft hum filled the tunnel. Lights blinked on. Bright white circles appeared on the walls. They had triggered a scan field. He pushed her into a gap in the wall, covering her with his body. A figure dropped from above, silent, smooth, no footsteps. It turned its head slowly, scanning the tunnel. Its voice was deep, cold, and clear. "Subject 6, return to base." The girl shook her head violently. Grant held her tighter. The figure stepped closer. "You are property of the Aerotech Labs. You do not belong to the outside." Grant stood up slowly, blocking the view. "Not going with you." The figure tilted its head. "You are not authorized to interfere. She's under my protection. That is irrelevant. The hunter stepped forward, but Grant raised his rifle. Try me, he said, voice steady. The hunter paused, then turned away. Without a word, it walked back into the shadows. Grant stood frozen, heart pounding. The girl looked up. Stop! He didn't know. Maybe it had orders not to kill humans. Maybe it was waiting for backup. It just wanted to track them longer. Whatever the reason, they were not safe yet. We keep moving, Grant said. Where? Somewhere they can't follow. She leaned her head against his chest. I don't want to be their thing anymore. He carried her through the darkness, heart heavy but focused. Because she wasn't just a mission anymore, she was his. And he would fight her entire species if he had to, just to keep her free. Rain began to fall. It wasn't clean rain. It was the kind that smelled like metal and left streaks on skin. But to Grant, it meant cover. No drones, no scans, just the sound of heavy drops. Hitting broken metal and stone, he and the girl had made it out of the underground maze before sunrise. The tall hunters hadn't returned, but their presence still pressed against the back of Grant's mind. Every corner could be a trap. Every silence could mean danger. He found a shattered sky bis, rusted and half buried in ash. The inside was dry, and the walls were thick enough to block most scanners. He set his rifle down, then helped the girl inside. She didn't speak much. She just curled up against the wall, watching him quietly with wide violet eyes. He handed her half of his last food ration. She didn't eat like a child. She ate like someone who had learned hunger too early. No complaints, no noise. Just small bites, careful chewing, eyes never leaving his face. Does it taste okay? He asked. She nodded. Better than the paste they gave us. Grant sat across from her, rubbing his sore shoulder. Days on the run, nights without sleep, and now a child who didn't belong anywhere, but somehow clung to him like he was the only thing left that made sense. What were your parents like? She asked suddenly. He paused. My dad was a mechanic, fixed old sky bikes. My mom taught little kids how to read. They were simple people, good people. She tilted her head.
Did they hug you?
Yeah, he said with a small smile. A lot. She looked down. I never got that. Grant leaned forward. Do you remember anything from before the lab? No. I think I was made in it. Made. Born there, but not like others. I was grown. From code. Grant felt a deep chill. So she was artificial, not born in the normal way. A life designed in a test tube, given breath by machines, raised behind glass. Still, he looked at her, the way she smiled when he said something kind. The way she held his hand when afraid. The way she trusted him, and none of it felt artificial. You ever want a name? He asked. She hesitated like it was a dangerous question. Then she nodded. Yes, ... but I don't know how to pick. Grant thought for a moment. How about Mira? It means miracle. She whispered the name like a secret. Mira, ... I like that. A soft sound of metal twisting in the distance made them freeze. Grant quickly killed the small heat lamp and pulled Mira to his side. He peeked through a crack in the skybu's wall. Just a shifting pipe, not a hunter. But the fear in her eyes had returned. I'm sorry, she said. They'll never stop. Dada shook his head. It's not your fault. They think I'm broken. You're not. I don't work like they wanted. He looked her in the eye. That means you're perfect. Mira didn't know how to respond. No one had ever said something like that to her. Slowly she moved closer and leaned her head on his arm. Do fathers say things like that? Yes, he said softly. Good ones do. She was quiet for a long time. The only sound was the rain hitting the roof. Then she tugged his sleeve. Can I call you Dad? She asked, voice trembling. Grant didn't move at first. The question struck deep. He had never had children. War and duty had stolen that path long ago. But this girl, this not quite alien, not quite human girl, had reached into something he thought was gone, and he couldn't say no. Yeah, he said, voice low and sure. You can. She didn't smile. She didn't cry. She just rapped. her arms around his waist and held on, not because she was afraid, but because she had chosen him. He wrapped his arms around her and rested his chin on her head. "You're safe now, Mira, I promise." Outside, the rain kept falling. Somewhere out there, her creators were still hunting. Somewhere, machines and soldiers were preparing to erase her again. But here in this broken place, under the arms of a man who had nothing left to lose, Mira had found what no lab could design: a father, and Grant a soldier who thought he had no more heart to give. Had found something worth fighting for that wasn't a flag or a cause. It was a name whispered. In trust, it was a child who needed love. It was the bond that could not be coded, broken, or stolen. The silence of dawn was broken by the sharp whine of an engine overhead. Grant grabbed Mira and ducked beneath a piece of broken wall as the sleek black drone scanned the ruins with blue light. It hovered in a slow circle, then shot away across the horizon. They weren't safe anymore. Grant knew they had to move fast. He checked his gear, nearly out of food, low on battery, and one charge left in his rifle. Not good odds. Mira stood beside him, quiet as always, her bare feet brushing through ash and dust. She looked up at him. "Are we going to fight them?" "Only if we have to," he said. She nodded once, like she understood what that meant. Like she had already lived through too many battles without ever picking up a weapon. They followed an old train rail, half buried under debris. Grant remembered from earlier maps that an outpost used to exist at the far end of the city, a human emergency shelter before the war pushed everyone back. If they could reach it, maybe there would be supplies, or a comlink strong enough to call for help after an hour of climbing through collapsed buildings and narrow gaps. They found the bunker entrance buried under rubble. Grant worked fast, pulling away beams and broken tiles. As he did, Mira stood still, staring at something in the distance. "What is it?" he asked. "I hear them," she said. Grant froze. "Where?" She pointed toward the sky. "There." He looked up. Nothing but clouds. No ships, no sounds, just wind. "How do you know?" Mira placed her hand on her neck. The mark was glowing again. "They're close." Before Grant could respond, a deafening blast shook the ground behind them. A building exploded outward as 3 hunter units dropped into view, their sleek forms shining under the morning sun. They didn't hesitate. They charged forward with impossible speed. "Mira, run!" Grant yelled, swinging his rifle around. He fired twice, the blasts forcing 2 of them back. The third one leaped too fast, slammed into Grant, knocking him to the ground. His rifle slid away. The hunter raised a blade. Mira screamed, and something changed. The air around her shimmered. The ground beneath her feet cracked. Her eyes glowed, not softly like before, but bright and sharp like lightning. A pulse of invisible energy burst from her body. Everything stopped. Literally, the hunter's blade hung frozen. Mid-swing, the other 2 hunters were stuck mid-step. Dust. Particles in the air hovered, unmoving. Grant stared in disbelief. Time wasn't just slowing, it had stopped. Mira stepped forward, calm, quiet. She touched the chest of the hunter nearest her. The moment her fingers brushed the armor, it began to melt. Not burn, not break. It simply turned to liquid and dripped to the ground, then everything snapped back. The hunters collapsed. The time-stopped world returned to normal. Myra swayed where she stood and nearly fell. Grant caught her. "What was that?" he asked, his voice shaken. She looked at her, hands terrified. "I don't know. I didn't mean to do it. Has it ever happened before?" "Only once," she said, "back in the lab." "I thought it was a dream." Grant stared at the melted metal, his mind racing. She had done that. A child. No tools. No weapons, just pure, unknown power. That was why they wanted her back. Not because she was broken, because she was dangerous and uncontrollable. He carried her into the bunker, pried the door open and lowered her inside. The old emergency lights flickered on. It wasn't much, but it would give them time. She sat against the wall, breathing slow, eyes filled with fear. Not from the hunters, but from herself. "I didn't want to hurt them," she said. "You didn't have a choice," Grant replied. You saved my life. She shook her head. They were once like me, built, changed, controlled, and now you're free, he said. But they aren't. That's not your fault. She looked down. If they find out what I can do, they'll never stop. Then we won't let them, he said firmly. We'll find help, Myra whispered. I'm scared. Grant knelt beside her and pulled her close. So am I. But you're not alone anymore. She leaned into him and whispered something so softly it barely reached his ears. Thank you. Dad. Grant closed his eyes, holding her tight. She wasn't a weapon. She wasn't a lab mistake. She was a little girl, brave and broken. With power no one understood, and she was his now. Whatever came next, he would face it. Because now, it wasn't just a mission. She was his reason to fight. The bunker lights buzzed faintly. Old tech, forgotten tech, but still working. Grant checked the power levels, patched into the half-dead console, and tried to reach Earth Command. Mira watched him from the corner, hugging her knees, quiet. As always, she hadn't spoken since she stopped time, not because she was tired, but because she was afraid of herself. He kept one eye on her and one ear on the radio static. Then a click. A voice. This is Command Station Echo 9. Identify Grant. Leaned in. This is Captain Grant Weston, reporting from Sector D7 Gamma, Colony Ruins. Silence for a moment, then the voice returned. You're supposed to be dead, Captain, not yet? Are you alone? He hesitated.
No, I have one survivor.
A child. Not human. Another pause. Longer this time? Describe the subject. She's about 7 years old. Small, purple skin, glowing eyes, has a symbol on her neck. Possibly genetically designed. She's ... different. Different how? Grant looked at Mira. She met his eyes, trusting him completely. He turned away from the mic. She's a child. It's all that matters. The voice changed. Captain, you were ordered to secure the location and leave the non-human life form. Behind, Grant felt his hand tighten around the radio. Say again? You are not authorized to extract the subject. Earth Command classifies engineered alien entities as high risk. Leave her and wait for retrieval. He looked at Mira again. She didn't understand what was happening, but she saw the change in his face. I'm not doing that, Grant said. You are a soldier? Follow your orders. She calls me Dad. Silence, Captain. You have 10 minutes to comply. If you resist, you'll be marked rogue. The signal went dead. Grant stood still, breathing slow. Myra tilted her head. What did they say? He didn't want to tell her, but she already knew. They don't want me, do they? He nodded once. I knew it, she whispered. He sat beside her, heart heavy. You deserve better than this. I don't know how to be normal. Don't have to be. Then what am I supposed to be? Grant looked her in the eyes. You're supposed to be whoever you want to be. I'll help you get there. She stared for a moment, then reached for his hand. I choose human, she said. He blinked. What do you mean? I don't know what I am, not really. But I want to be like you. I want to laugh, and eat food, and look at stars, and hold someone's hand without feeling afraid. Grant felt something shift inside him. She wasn't asking for a mission, or power, or answers. She was asking for a life. He stood up and checked. The panel, the sensors were blinking. A retrieval ship had entered orbit. He had 10 minutes. He opened the emergency hatch and looked outside. The dust was clearing. The storm was over. The land was still broken, but open. Come on, he said. Mira stood beside him, her feet bare, her new name still fresh in her mouth. Where are we going? Lo looked up at the sky. Anywhere they can't follow? They climbed out of the bunker and moved through the ash-filled field. Behind them, a ship descended from the clouds, dark, sharp. With the Earth symbol painted across its wings, a voice came through Grant's comlink again. Captain Weston, you have one last chance. Stand down and leave the subject. He pulled off his cum and crushed it under his boot. Mira looked up at him. Are you sure? Grant smiled. I've followed a lot of orders. This is the first time I'm following my heart." She didn't need to say anything. Her hand in his said it all. They moved toward the far mountains. Slow steps. Long road. But together. Behind them, the retrieval ship circled the bunker, scanning, waiting. But there was nothing left to retrieve, because Grant had made his choice. He wasn't a soldier today. He was a father. Snow drifted gently across the hills, turning the broken earth into something soft and quiet. Grant walked with careful steps, Mira holding his hand, her small footprints next to his in the white dust. It had been 3 days since they escaped. The colony ruins. 3 days without orders, without signals, without a plan, just a direction. East. Toward freedom. Toward the old human base hidden in the mountains. Grant's body ached. He hadn't slept much, but every time he looked at Mira walking beside him, her violet eyes watching everything, he felt something stronger than pain, purpose. She didn't ask about the soldiers anymore. She didn't cry. She stayed close, her hand always in his. And sometimes she smiled. A real smile. Not the scared one he first saw back in the ruins. They were almost there. Grant spotted the old base just as the sun began to rise. A gray shape built into the rocks, long abandoned by the military. Number, flags, no lights. But it was shelter. He led her through the narrow passage and pushed open the rusted gate. Inside, the halls were quiet. Cold, but still standing. He activated the generator. Old lights blinked on. Systems, MED. Safe. Mira curled up in one of the padded chairs and pulled a blanket over herself. "Will they come again?" she asked. "Not for a while," Grant said. "We're off the grid now." She looked at him for a long time. "Do you miss Earth?" He nodded. "Sometimes. Do you think they'll ever let you come back?" He sat beside her and brushed a bit of snow from her hair. "I don't care anymore." She smiled at him. That same soft smile she was just learning to make. Then something caught his attention. The base's old computer blinked, a recorded signal. He tapped the screen. A face appeared, an older officer, tired eyes, same uniform Grant used to wear. "Captain Weston," the recording began. "You've been marked AWOL, but we know why. That child is classified as property under interstellar biodesign laws. She's not allowed to exist outside of containment. If you continue to protect her, we will consider you both enemies of the state." The screen went black. Mira stared at it, silent. Then she asked, "Am I going to make your life harder?" Grant chuckled, the sound dry. "Kid, you already did." She blinked. "But I wouldn't trade it for anything." She crawled into his lap and rested her head on his chest. "Do other kids get to sit like this?" "Yeah," he said. "They do, or they should." She closed her eyes. "I like it." He wrapped his arms around her, holding her close. Time passed. Eventually, she asked the one thing he didn't expect. "If something happens to you, will I still be your daughter?" He looked down at her. "Nothing will happen to me. Always." She smiled again. "Okay." Then she reached up, tugged his shirt gently, and whispered something she hadn't said since the day she found him in the ruins.
"Can I call you Dad?"
He looked at her, this strange, powerful, brave little soul who had been left to rot. By her creators, hunted by her own kind, ignored by the galaxy, he smiled. "You don't have to ask anymore." She giggled softly and said, "Okay, Dad." Outside, snow kept falling. Inside, for the first time in her short life, she felt like she belonged. No labs, no codes, no hunters, just a chair.
A blanket.
A heartbeat. And a name she chose for herself, Mira. Daughter of no one, now daughter of someone. And Grant, once a tired soldier with no future, now had a reason to live, fight, and protect. She didn't come from Earth, but she had found something more human than blood or birth. A father. And he had found something stronger than orders or laws. Love.